Hey, now, what is up, good people? Welcome into the Full Coverage Football Show. We are live here on our Facebook page, fb.me/FCFSpod. And we are also available 24/7 if you check out this page, if you check out YouTube, or if you want to listen to the audio version just because you don't want to see my beautiful bearded face. You can check out the audio version on Google Pods, Apple Pods, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, and we are there. So, before we get into things tonight, make sure you do us a favor. Look at the bottom of your screen and see our sponsors and our page so you know what's up with us at all times. Also, if you're watching live here on the Facebook page, go ahead and comment. Be a part of the show. You can comment. We will read your comments for the most part, and we will post them on the screen so that you can be semi-famous along with us. It'll be a lot of fun. But we got a good show for you tonight. Some good stuff going on. We've got Pat Mahomes mega deal when we go around the NFL. We're going to talk possibly no college football, some stupid NFL jersey rules, top 5 running backs, and some players who want to get traded, one of which has no right to ask for a trade. And yeah, I'm salty, and we'll talk more about that later. When Drew comes on, we're going to bring him on shortly, and then we're going to get into our AFC North 2020 preview with our guest who canceled on us at the last minute once again. So, without further ado, let's bring on the star of the show, Mr. Drew Ward. So let's welcome in Mr. Drew Ward at Detroit Dave 7 on the Twitterverse. What is up, brother?
My man, good evening to you. How are you, my friend?
I cannot complain. I am ready to talk some football.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, and let's start with the number one thing here going on in the sports universe outside of COVID, outside of the racism, and we won't bring up Deshaun Jackson tonight. We need to move on from this kind of subject, and it's getting a little difficult to talk about. So let's talk about Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes signed a 10-year extension with the Kansas City Chiefs that brings his total deal to 12 years and can be worth up to $503 million. The extension alone is a 10-year, $450 million deal, $140 million guaranteed. Now, if the Chiefs decide today that they don't want to pay him anymore, they decide they made a mistake and they say, hey, let's go let him be a free agent. The way this deal works right now, it only added $30,000 to this year's cap, which is crazy when you think about all the money. However, his cap number for this year is $2.8 million. If they cut him, that goes to $63 million cap number. Bonkers. If he keeps in the deal on March of 2022, the third day of the league year, the Chiefs can decide to buy him out for $70 million, cut him a check right there, or he gets $38 million guaranteed. Now, 2023 comes around, they can essentially cut him if they give him $78.4 million, or they can give him $38 million to play. And come 2024, that number becomes $76.85 million if they want to cut him. So that's on the third day of the league year, each season of this deal. It's unbelievable. And if they decide to hold on to him and cut him in 2026, the extension essentially becomes a 5-year, $247 million deal, which is absolutely insane. 5 years, $250 million basically. But either way, the total value of this contract can reach $503 million and is the richest contract in all of sports history. Is this insane? And is this what other players are going to start getting? Or is this a Pat Mahomes only deal?
No, it's Pat Mahomes only deal. I mean, right?
I would say so.
I mean, nobody else is getting that. Listen, Pat Mahomes is special. The thing is, with a deal like this, I remember the frustration and the anger when the Lions signed Stafford. These deals just keep growing and growing. But this kind of deal, it's almost like the Christian McCaffrey deal for a running back. You're not going to see another one of those deals.
Yeah.
There's not going to be another running back paid like that. This guy's special. I mean, listen, a 10-year deal in the NFL where, I mean, anything can happen on any play. But what are you going to do? Let the guy, I mean, you're making him basically a Kansas City Chief for life. Mm-hmm. He's tied to you for the next 12 years. And of course, like you said, if they were ever going to move off of him, the earlier they would move off of him, the better, based off of the actual structure of the deal. The longer you hold on to him, then you get into these, wild numbers. How they managed to structure the cap for this year, I honestly, you can tell. I don't know. I'm not going to act sophisticated in the cap enough to understand it, but good for the Chiefs. I think good for Patrick Mahomes. You won a Super Bowl. I guess you could say that there's a lot of kind of pressure on the kid at this point. That's a big deal to live up to. But I certainly think he's a wonderful personality. He seems like a great kid, and none of these contracts surprise me. The years of the contract surprise me more than the value or the dollars. 10 years to me is aggressive. This is the NFL. He could get split in half tomorrow on the football field. And I'm sure there's injury structures and things like that. But 10 years is it's a lot of years. But if you're the Chiefs, why not? But again, come 2 years down the road when they're having to figure out how to structure deals based off of the cap, because that amount of hit to the cap eventually is going to be pretty extreme on the team.
Well, when you look at the deal and you break it down, you're looking at come March of 2022 when it's $38 million guaranteed. You're thinking, okay, right now Matt Ryan's a $30 million quarterback, and everyone thought that deal, 5 years, $150 million, was absolutely bonkers at the time too. And you brought up the Stafford deal. He's almost not even in the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks anymore.
Correct.
So he is an absolute bargain at this point. But for $38 million guaranteed 2 years down the road, that may be less annual average value than a Dak Prescott or Deshaun Watson. And when you think about it, 10 years or total of 12 years, basically tying this 24-year-old quarterback to the Chiefs until he's 36 years old, Pat may be leaving money on the table here, which is insane to think about with a $503 million contract. When you break it down and think he's getting a 5-year, $250 million deal based out of 2026 on this extension of the guarantees, that's his prime 5 years from now. Think of how good he can be. And yeah, the $140 million guaranteed, that kind of helps the Chiefs. So if he does get split in half, yeah, it's really nice for him, $140 million guaranteed, but it also saves the Chiefs.
Yeah.
The thing is, we talk about it, there's no one else going to get this deal. This is the Mike Trout deal in baseball. No one else. You talk about, Manny Machado got $300 million, and then you got Bryce Harper got $300 million. Trout got $400 million because he's Mike freaking Trout. He's the best player on the planet. Pat Mahomes is the greatest football player playing right now. And you look at some of these throws he makes as we watch some of the highlights here on the screen for those of you listening on the audio version. For those of you who've never seen him throw, he's ridiculous. He's really freaking talented. Can throw from any platform. The kid's just a flat-out stud. But Deshaun Watson's coming up for a deal. What are the Texans going to do with him? Is he going to get $300 million? Probably. Knowing Bill O'Brien, you never know what he's going to do.
That's right.
And then you got Dak Prescott still looking for a deal from Jera, and Jerry doesn't seem to want to pay him.
Yeah.
But these guys cannot seriously look at what Mahomes got and say, yeah, that's what I deserve. Because Pat Mahomes, not only the most talented, he's in the perfect situation. All the variables fit him perfectly. And it's not the same way with them, because with Deshaun, you got Bill, and with Dak, we don't know how great he really is.
And I think that might be – I think that's understood. I honestly think that everybody's kind of clear that you're probably not going to get Patrick Mahomes type money. Because, again, he's that talented and he's that special. So, to me, I think it's kind of a no-brainer for the Chiefs to do it. We'll see down the road how it affects what they can do. But when you have somebody that special in a league with that basically the most important position of all of sports, when you have somebody that special and that talented, you just lock them down. Mm-hmm. And the Chiefs said, shit, we're just going to give you 10 years. And that had to be surprising to Mahomes in his age. That's an aggressively long deal. And it's again, I'm just shocked at the length of the deal, but
it is crazy to think about.
Yeah, but hey, good for Patrick Mahomes, good for the Chiefs. They're fresh off a Super Bowl. We'll see what happens coming forward, but there's no doubt that there's no more talented quarterback in the NFL than that guy.
So with that being said, of the quarterbacks coming up here in the future, you got Lamar Jackson, MVP last year, who we'll talk about more later when we talk about our AFC North preview. Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, maybe a Sam Darnold if he turns things around, maybe a Baker Mayfield if he gets back to where he was in his rookie year. Of these guys, who you think becomes the closest as far as money total and years? Who comes the closest to a Pat Mahomes contract?
Well, you would think it would be Lamar Jackson, but I honestly think it's Deshaun Watson.
Mm-hmm.
Is what because shit. Think of what Bill O'Brien did. Would you be surprised if they gave him something crazy? I mean, listen, Deshaun Watson's worthy of a fantastic deal. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think Dak's, of course, eventually going to get his, but Deshaun Watson, in my opinion, will be getting the most. I mean, Lamar Jackson, if Lamar Jackson continues on the trajectory he's at right now, then we can certainly look back at the discussion. I don't appreciate any Lions highlights. If you could keep those out, I would appreciate that.
My bad.
But no, I think if Lamar Jackson continues on this trajectory, but I think Deshaun Watson has had two more years to prove exactly who he is, and we'll see moving forward. But that would be my pick. Who you take?
I'm gonna go with Deshaun Watson as well because you've got crazy Bill running his used car lot over there with his crazy deals at any time. You never know what he's going to do. He's a GM. He is the czar of football there for Houston. And with Lamar, still, they've got an offense built around him. If he improves as a thrower, if he continues to do that, I mean, he was really good last year in a lot of games against worse teams when it came to throwing. But those legs, I mean, ran for 1,200 yards. I mean, what's it going to come down to? How good is he really going to be if those legs start to slow down on him, if he ends up getting a knee injury? I mean, that's where I really question what Lamar will get. I think he's going to get paid. I think they'll give him a solid contract, but I think Deshaun is the guy. And then probably Lamar, and then probably Dak at this point.
I think it's a safer pick. I mean, I really do. I mean, in my opinion, because Deshaun Watson, however, can use his legs. Deshaun Watson, I believe, takes less hits, although Houston's offensive line at times has just been atrocious. Because nobody really knows what the hell Bill O'Brien's doing down there. And so, but yeah, I expect Deshaun Watson to get paid, but he's got a lot to prove this year, without having Nuke Hopkins on the outside. We'll have to see what that looks like.
Yeah. Deshaun takes less violent hits, I feel like, because he takes a lot of hits in the pocket, but his are hits a quarterback's used to. Lamar's taking hits out of the pocket, running down the sideline, and getting crushed because he's a runner most of the time. So I'm totally with you on that. Absolutely. And that is the good news. And now when we talk stupid NFL things, new stupid NFL rule after games, players love to exchange jerseys and hug and hand pound and go through. And now the NFL says after the game, that is not allowed. So after these guys have been tackling each other, breathing on each other, spitting on each other, drooling on each other, whatever, body fluid flying out of whatever helmet you're wearing. After the game, after that 60 minutes, you're not allowed to be in contact with another team's player. This is the stupidest thing you've ever heard.
I mean, yeah, but listen, the NFL's had 4 months to come up with a safety protocol plan, and this is the first thing they came up with, and it's like, shit, man. Listen, it's stupid. Of course, it's stupid, but so is the damn trading jersey things at the end of the games. But yeah, come on. If you're gonna let them go play and just basically be on top of each other for 60 minutes, but you won't allow anything after the game, it just seems stupid. But I mean, the NFL is kind of what they do. It doesn't. I just think it's hilarious that they thought that they could come out and say some stuff like that, and people would just be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good idea." Like, no, what the, they sometimes they just seem to kind of lose sight of what they're doing. Again, it's dumb. It'll change. It'll change.
It definitely needs to, because this is basically the NFL coming out and saying, "Hey, look how much we care. We don't want our players, to get sick. We don't want them to breathe on each other," after they've done it for the 60 minutes that makes us money.
Correct.
It's ridiculous. It's
we say that about the NFL all the time in the way
every week it's really about what makes them money. And speaking of making money, we're going to move on because we don't need to talk about that topic because it's just stupid. Raheem Mostert. Mostert is due $2.5 million this year, $2.875 next year as part of a 3-year deal he signed with the 49ers. And now he wants out because, according to his agent, Brent Tessler, after months of unproductive talks on adjustments, he wants to be out of there. This guy just signed a 3-year deal last year. He's now the 4th highest paid running back on the Niners, behind Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon, Kyle Juszczyk. And I mean, when you look at who the Niners have, they've got Coleman, they've got Wilson, and what's left of Jerick McKinnon, who hasn't played in 2 years because of knee injuries. So
traded Matt Breida.
They did. They traded Matt Breida to the Dolphins after they couldn't come up to a contract extension with him. And now it's Raheem Mostert, who ran for 772 yards last year and 10 scores. Is this just a dude who is like, hey, you know what? I outplayed my contract, or is this just shut up and play?
It's hard because what he's asking for is somewhat around Tevin Coleman money. So it's not like he's necessarily asking for the bank. Like, he ain't, you know what I mean? But at the same time, he's not on. Let's not act like his. A $2.5 million contract for a running back is not terrible.
No, not in this day and age.
And he's also going to get the ball quite a bit. I think at this point, his best thing would be to just come out and have a year. And then next year you can turn around and ask for Tevin Coleman money, or you can go from there, in my opinion. Because right now, to me, yes, you had a nice season, but you're a Cinderella story at this point. I mean, the way that he's gotten into the league and the rosters he's been cut from. And so for me, I think the timing might not be great. But he's going to be featured. He's got an opportunity to play really well, just like he did last year, especially with Matt Breida, who got a significant amount of touches there last year. It's going to feature Tevin Coleman, and it's going to feature, Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, just take your opportunity, go out there and play. But again, I don't think what he's asking for is crazy. But you just signed the thing is, you just signed the extension last year. Okay, so the 49ers organization and John Lynch is not going to feel sorry for you whatsoever based off of you just signing this contract.
And I'm with you on that. And you look at what he did. Yeah, 772 yards is nice. But you said it. Last year, he signed that deal because he's bounced around the NFL. He was on the practice squad with the Cleveland Browns. Couldn't make that squad, or they just don't know how to gauge talent, which is a Browns thing to do. But this guy comes in. He has a really solid year. 772 yards, nothing to sneeze at. But the 10 scores, obviously, he had a nose for the end zone. But the thing is, you've already hit on it, is this is a running back-friendly offense, and he's going to get a better chance this year from the start to really do big things. So if you just play out for your $2.5 million this year, then next year they may sign you to a bigger extension, and you're going to make your money at that point because you signed this deal knowing that you'd bounce around the NFL and you wanted some security. I understand that. And yes, you've probably outplayed this contract or probably will outplay it at some point, but you just signed this deal. Let's see how you do this year.
And at the same time, too, if you're the Niners, you gave this kid the opportunity. You know, you gave him an opportunity to play, and yes, he excelled. But like the fact that he just signed this contract again, you're like, listen, because again, $2 million. I know it's not a lot, but for running backs in this league, they're a dime. I mean, it's not like they're a dime a dozen. I mean, you can find running backs pretty much anywhere. I mean, yes, there's elite ones, but you can't just sign this contract and then a year later come back and say this is what I want. Especially when you have the opportunity to really prove yourself and actually get a deal. You can get a better than Tevin Coleman deal if you show out this year. And it may not be with the 49ers, maybe elsewhere, but at the same time, I just think it's a bad look for you to have. Yes, you had 10 touchdowns, but you have one good season when you haven't even had the opportunity to be on a squad and get the ball. For you to be asking for this now, it just seems a little early in my opinion.
I'm with you 100% on that. Hold on, play this year. And if you want to talk about guys who really haven't proven anything and they want to trade, let's talk about a Cleveland Browns player who now also wants out, and that's tight end David Njoku, 6'4", 247-pound, 24-year-old tight end with all the skills to be a really good tight end, but has never really put it together. And now this guy, when you finally have a chance to play in a good offense, decides that he wants out. According to his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, a dumb agent who loves to make dumb trade requests with all of his guys or ask for too much money, but usually gets the job done. He's got this chance, Njoku, to actually be in an offense where he can put up numbers, whether he's a starter or not. It's a tight end friendly offense. He's proven nothing so far in the league. He's got 93 catches for 1,066 yards and 9 scores in 3 years. And this is after being a first round pick. And I'm not expecting huge numbers out of him because we've talked about on the show many times that tight ends usually take a year or two to really develop. And now this guy, after a 5-catch, 41 receiving yard, and 1 score campaign from last season, decides he wants to be traded. He has no. Just go ahead, because I'm just going to continue ranting.
No,
go ahead.
You can't. Okay, I get your point, but don't throw up his stats from last season because that's not relevant. It's not relevant. First of all, he was injured. Second of all, Freddie Kitchens hated him. Okay, so the fact he even scored a touchdown, you actually think he deserves credit. But no, he doesn't. He has nothing to stand on here. Drew Rosenhaus, although is a pesky little annoying bug, he's one of the better agents out there. Mm-hmm. Listen, David Njoku coming out, and still is a freak. It just happened to be that.
And this, I believe, was the 1 touchdown pushed into the end zone for those of you watching or listening on the audio version.
Listen, he has all the talent in the world. You're right. Kevin Stefanski, he comes in. He loves to run 2 tight end sets. Mm-hmm. With the addition of Austin Hooper, I think that this was setting up for David Njoku to have a really nice year potentially in that offense. I don't personally think the Browns should proactively try to trade the guy. Well, again, like you said, who the hell are you, dude? Mm-hmm. Like, listen. The talent speaks for itself. The numbers speak for themselves. The numbers aren't speaking what the talent says. So what leg do you have to stand on and tell us that you're demanding a trade? Because the thing is, from the Browns standpoint, they're not going to get shit for him. Mm-hmm. They'll get a 4th or a 5th round pick maybe, but they're not going to get. Because what has he proven? He has no track record. I think if you're the Browns here, you just say, hey, listen, bud. Sorry you feel that way. We're not going to trade you because we think you're an asset to the team, and I think he certainly can be, but he needs to get his head off his ass clearly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no reason the Browns should try to move him, and getting a 5th maybe if they traded him to Green Bay is possible. You're not getting a lot for him. There's people on Twitter like, oh, trade him for a good linebacker, Browns need linebackers. You're not going to get anyone worth a damn. And then there's the people like, trade him for Jamal Adams. You're insane. David Njoku has 0 trade value. He was
Jamal Adams.
Yeah, it's insane. Browns Twitter is amazing. We all have Dreamer Twitterverse, which is absolutely bonkers. But this is a kid who's got tons of talent. You said it, and the Browns drafted Harrison Bryant out of Florida Atlantic in the 4th round of this year's draft. But we've said it on the show, and I just said it 2 seconds ago. Tight ends take a while to develop. So this kid, he could be helpful sometime this season. But for now, even with Austin Hooper and the big money he got, Njoku's going to be on the field a lot of the time. And if he works just a little bit, he's going to get open, and then you need Baker Mayfield to be able to find him. And to be fair, I did say that his numbers last year were terrible, but to be 100% fair on that, Baker Mayfield hung him out to dry and damn near got the guy killed in the Jets game when he broke his wrist. So it's not 100% fair to bring that up because a lot of that was Baker's fault.
You were just going on a rant about Njoku. Yeah. Oh, now he's
and I had to bring it back. But Njoku, listen, Chief Njoku, you got talent. You were drafted 2 picks ahead of TJ Watt, which still eats at me to this day. You need to shut your mouth. Yeah, we could play the draft game all day. Shut your mouth. Get on the field. Play. You got a 4th year this year, 5th year option, which can be picked up for pretty decent money for a 1st round pick. And then after that, do whatever you want. But catch the ball. Get consistent. Show a team you can do something. And then the Browns will probably deal you because you can get something back. But for now, they're not going to get anything. It's not worth dealing him.
Stop fumbling.
And now I'm done with my rant on David Njoku. So basically what we've said is both guys need to just play out. You're
I
getting
mean, I
good
just
money.
don't think they have the ground to stand on.
No.
Now,
neither
Jamal
one.
Adams can stand on some ground because
Absolutely.
Jamal Adams is a stud. Now, these guys, again, unproven guys.
Mhm.
And I'm all about getting the money, dude. Trust me, and especially in the NFL. I'm about getting the money, but there's a time and place, and I don't think it's right now.
And I'm with you on that. And now, before we move on to our AFC North preview and talk about our sponsors, last week we talked about the top 5 quarterbacks in the AFC, which wasn't a very good list because quarterback play in the AFC is not very good. And I keep wanting to say NFC at this point. Now, this week, we are moving on to our top 5 running backs in the AFC by the end of the 2020 season. And to start off, we will go with Mr. Drew Ward and his top 5. Who you got, brother?
Le'Veon Bell at 5.
Okay.
Listen, the Jets are a dumpster fire. The coach hates the guy. Yeah. Like, listen, Le'Veon Bell, he stepped away for a year. I think some of the year was getting his feet underneath him again, taking some hits again. But let's not act like Anthony Gase did from Anthony Gase. I can't even talk.
Adam Gase, baby, the
Adam
taco
Gase.
truck.
So let's not act like Adam Gase did him any favors. But I still think he's talented in the ability for him to also catch the ball out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
I still think he warrants being a number 5.
I'm with you.
Number 4, I'm gonna go with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, kind of been held hostage in Cincinnati as of right now. It was banged up a little last year. Although I just love the way the kid runs. That offense was sputtering. They had no weapons. Their quarterback position was terrible. The whole team's a dumpster fire. I think he kind of gets back on track this year. I love everything about the way he runs the football, Joe Mixon, and I think he has a better year than he did last year. I will put him at number 4. Number 3, I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs. I actually think that Josh Jacobs is probably ascending on this list more than anybody. I think, there's Josh Jacobs. See, Matt Graydon gets it. I think he's really good, and I think he's a guy that you can feed the ball, 25 times a game, and he's just going to be featured because that's how that offense is going to work. And I know Gruden's going to run the ball through him. But I mean, it's hard to put Josh Jacobs over either of the top 2 guys. Which number 2, I have Nick Chubb. I mean, in a year where Cleveland had such high expectations and things like that, the fact that Nick Chubb came out and just was a silent assassin, really running the football again with an offense that was sputtering and a team that really couldn't move the ball through the air with any consistency. Mm-hmm. And then you got to go with Derrick Henry at 1, in my opinion. I mean, shit, he's big, he's good. I mean, he carries the ball 30 times. He's not. It's weird because you look at this list, and this list, Nick Chubb has the ability to be truck guy. I mean, but Derrick Henry is literally just a guy, a big fella that can move the ball, and they give him touches. So I think as far as the top 3 goes, I mean, we could sit back here next year and see Josh Jacobs in the top 2, mm-hmm. But I mean, an honorable mention would be Leonard Fournette. However, Leonard Fournette's yard per carry is not great. But again, it's a dumpster fire down there in Jacksonville. But Leonard Fournette's also just a dick in general. So that's why he couldn't crack my top 5.
I mean, Leonard's good for averaging on his first 15 carries 1.6 yards and breaking one off for 80 and just trucking defenses. Now, Leonard Fournette does not make my top 5, and I'm actually going to give you 6 because I have a specialty player in there. At 6, I have Le'Veon Bell. The guy's still got talent, and I'm hoping he bounces back this year for the Jets. Number 5, I got Josh Jacobs, and I think Josh Jacobs definitely, I'm with you, could totally climb this list. At 4, Joe Mixon. And then at number 3 is my specialty player, Lamar Jackson. Now, yes, he's a quarterback. He's in the top 5 quarterbacks, but a guy who runs for 1,206 yards and is going to take off with the ball more times than some of these other running backs, I had to add him to the list. And now the top 2, I'm with you on the same top 2. And yes, free Lenny from Jacksonville.
Free Lenny from Jacksonville. Dude, Lenny, I just think he's a lazy ass dude. Like
he can be, absolutely.
You could send him anywhere. I mean, I don't know.
We've talked about it in about 2 weeks here. We'll talk about Jacksonville again and how we feel about that team not knowing what they're doing. That plan makes no sense. Now to my number 2, I've got Derrick Henry. I like Derrick Henry. Big guy. Absolutely plows over. And yes, I'm going with the homer pick. The number 1 running back who should have led the league last year in rushing. If it wasn't for Freddie Kitchens holding his Denny's menu and calling for the grand slam rather than the halfback sweep, Nick Chubb is going to be the best running back in the AFC and possibly in the entire NFL by the end of the 2020 season, which will bring up a lot of issues for the Cleveland Browns because they're going to have to decide whether to pay the man. And with that being said, let's take a second to thank our sponsors. So, if you look at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see that at the bottom we have our full coverage football show, fb.me/FCFS pod. Now that is us. That's where you find the show live. And if you're listening on the audio version, that's fb.me/FCFS pod. And yes, you can also find the show on Anchor, on YouTube, on iHeart, Spotify, wherever. We're all over the place at this point. And yeah, we have taken it global. We are 97% of our listeners are coming in from the United States, 1% from Great Britain, 1% from Sweden, and 1%, since I actually said percent right that time, from Ireland. We are taking it global. But if you would like to be a sponsor, hit us up on our Facebook page. Join in this, where you can see our sponsors scrolling across the bottom of your screen or where we're going to talk about them now. Check out our sponsors, Manhattan Deli Menor. That's 440-974-0055. Concealed Carry Firearms Training, 440-391-4118. And Kitty Cove Daycare at Kitty Cove OH on Facebook. Check out our sponsors. Thank them and check them out. And now, before we move on to our AFC North preview, we're going to go to a comment here. And yeah, Austin Eckler is definitely a guy who could crack that top 6 or 7. But they don't have a quarterback going into this year. So when I think about it, by the end of the 2020 season, how good is he going to be with Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert? I'm not 100%. He's going to be better than any of the guys we've already mentioned, even though I think he's a really
top
good
10.
player.
He's top 10, though.
I mean, Eckler probably can crack the top 5 if he gets any help from his quarterback play. But this is also his first year as a full-time runner where he's got the official job, because last year you knew Melvin Gordon would eventually be back, and Melvin Gordon saw what he was doing and said, I got to get my ass off the couch and get back.
Austin Eckler did, however, take tremendous opportunity he took that opportunity he was given with Melvin Gordon and holding out, and he was spectacular. Mm-hmm. I mean, he really was single-handedly trying to bring that team to wins. And yes, they had a rough season, but yeah, Austin Eckler was fantastic. And you're right. I think he encouraged Melvin Gordon to get off the couch because Austin Eckler was showing out.
And that was with Phillip Rivers, which helped. But now I still do not like Justin Herbert. I'm trying to get on board Herbert. We'll talk about more of that. I believe next week we're doing the AFC West. We'll talk more about that there. But for this week, it is the AFC North 2020 preview. And we will begin with the bottom of the AFC North, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. 2-14 last year, but this is a totally different squad. It's out with the old Andy Dalton gone, Tyler Eifert gone. You've moved on from the Vontaze Burficts. You've moved on from the Pac-Man Jones. You've moved on from the Marvin Lewis squads, and you're finally moving into a younger team here that is going to be highlighted by young head coach and Zach Taylor in his second year, and the addition of Joe Burrow. You've brought in young guys like Jesse Bates and Sam Hubbard, T. Higgins, Logan Wilson, Sean Williams, who led your team in tackles last year. The Bengals also were led in receptions and yards by Tyler Boyd. 90 catches, 1,046 yards, 5 scores, and the aforementioned Joe Mixon, who ran for 1,137 yards last year. Now, they still do have AJ Green, who they franchised, and they have less than a week to sign him to a long-term deal, which at this point I do not see happening.
It's not going to happen.
So he's basically going to play out this year. But when you look at the weapons
here,
I
don't think the Bengals should, by the way. No. I don't think the Bengals should.
I'm with you. And they shouldn't because of the injury history there, and you're not sure what the guy still has as he's getting older. So you've lost Dalton, you've lost Eifert, you've moved on. You brought in Trey Waynes, Von Bell, some veteran safeties, veteran secondary guys. They're okay. But really, what this is about this year is one man, and it's the man in the Queen City. It is Joe Burrow. Last year at LSU, 60 touchdowns, 6 picks, 5,671 yards, and a 76% completion rate. Absolutely bonker numbers, no matter what you're playing.
Every time I hear it, I just...
These are like the numbers you saw Colt Brennan put up at Hawaii. But this was the guy in the toughest division in college football. Burrow, absolute stud, number 1 overall pick. He's going to start day 1. What are you looking for from the Bengals this year?
Just taking a step in the right direction. This team's not built to win yet. I mean, yes, you mentioned they've made a bunch of. It seems like they're starting to turn the page. They're starting to bring in new life. Trey Waynes is trash. I mean, yes. I mean, they signed a couple Big Ten guys, which is fine. Like, listen. Yes, Joe Burrow's the guy, right? T. Higgins is a nice addition to add. I like the idea of course, of AJ Green and with his ability to stretch the field and just his ability to be that X guy. But you also think that would free things up for Tyler Boyd. But you look for Joe Mixon to, again, Joe Mixon ran for 1,000 yards last year, and you think of how bad that situation was down there. But don't expect Joe Burrow to just step right in here because this roster is not built to win yet. I expect them to be better. Listen, Joe Burrow is going to be a nice player, in my opinion. They're going to have to get him more help over time. You can't flip a roster around like this overnight. But again, I think they're still going to finish, in my opinion, last in this division. I would think, what were they last year? 2-14?
2-14.
I'd put them at 5-11. Mm-hmm. And 5-11 might not sound great, but if you see things from Joe Burrow and you see things, as far as that offense overall, you have to be at least a little excited about that. And I think even going 5-11, if you see some of those things, you can be okay with that and know you load up on more talent, and then 2022 or 21, whatever the hell year we're even in anymore, might look a little brighter for you, and you might hopefully look to finish over 500.
When you look at this roster on paper, they've got solid weapons. They've got a young quarterback who he's going to struggle, obviously, when he comes in. You don't know what he's going to be off the bat. He's got a learning curve, and it's going to be a weird offseason. I mean, you're not really in training camp normal. You're not going to be in preseason games normal, possibly playing 0 preseason games. But you have weapons around him. You've got the Mixon. You've got John Ross. You've got T. Higgins. You've got Tyler Boyd. You've got A.J. Green. You've got guys he can get the ball to. But what really worries me when I look at this roster, and yeah, they were 31st in defense last year, but that defense doesn't worry me. I think Sam Hubbard's coming on. I think Logan Wilson and Sean Williams are going to play well together. The secondary is at best, but Geno Atkins is still there. I mean, there's some solid pieces here on both sides of the ball. But where you win in the NFL is up front. That defensive line is okay, but that offensive line, huge question mark. You got Bobby Hart who started at right tackle, who probably couldn't block me, and I'm not going to knock anybody off their feet in the NFL for the most part because I can barely move half the time.
And you have a rookie. You got a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, you got a guy in your left tackle.
David Carr situation here.
Exactly what it is. You don't want him to get hit and get in his head, because then as soon as he hears footsteps, he's getting rid of that football too soon and making mistakes. You have to figure out this offensive line. If the Bengals are going to do anything anytime soon, figure out the offensive line. Yeah, they've got their rookie left tackle coming in, who high pick, but he's Alabama. He was injured last year. What has he got coming off the injury? How good is he going to be coming off an injury and starting for the first time in the NFL? Rookie left tackle, you don't always know what you're going to get. So for the Bengals, their over-under is 5.5. You have them at 5-11. I'm also going to go with the under. I think they're a 4 to 6 win team, and the 5.5 sticks you right there. And this is all dependent on what you can get out of Joe Burrow. But the weapons are there, and the Zach Taylor offense that he wants to run in the style of the Rams that he learned under the boy genius and Sean McVay, he's got the shot. He's got the weapons to do it. They just need to block.
Did you just bring up Jeff Fisher?
No, Sean McVay. Not that genius. I mean, not the 8-8 genius. Hey, I would take 8-8 right now. Give me Jeff Fisher, baby. No. If you're the Bengals, anyone can get you 8 wins. It's Jeff Fisher. Yep. For the Bengals, they've got a chance. And this division, the problem for them is the division.
It's juggernaut.
It's a very, very good division.
Correct.
So I'm going to go with your 5-11. I really like that number. We'll both go with the under. But the Bengals are going to be an interesting team to watch this year. Let's hope Joe Burrow can do something, because I really like Joe Burrow as a kid, and he just announced today that he's got a partnership with the Athens Food Bank. Good kid, doing good things in that area, staying hometown. So now we'll move on to the third place team in the AFC North, the 6-10 Cleveland Browns. And the Browns always better. They were the darlings last year. On paper, this was a team that everyone was in love with. They added Odell Beckham Jr. People freaked out. You had the swag. You had the John Dorsey sweatshirts and the Dad Force One Browns shoes. Everyone was big into John Dorsey. Freddie Kitchens was the man because him and Baker loved each other, and he was that guy that you would love to sit at the bar and have a drink with. But when it came down to football and getting it done on the field, well, it just didn't work quite out for Fred right there, did it? Because like I said earlier, he was reading Denny's menus instead of playbooks. And the Browns sucked last year because they are always better on paper than they are on the field. But this year, once again, there's hope by the shores of Lake Erie. They have added Jack Conklin. They have added Jedrick Willis, Austin Hooper, Andrew Billings, Grant Delpit. And once again, as we say every year with the Browns, a brand new head coach and GM in Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. This team has all the tools to be really, really good. But it's all going to be on the shoulders of one player, and that player is number 6, the guy under center, Baker Mayfield. Now, I'll go to you for this part. Is Baker Mayfield going to bounce back in 2020 after a turnover fantastic 2019 season?
He better.
Damn right he better.
He better. His job's on the line. Here's the deal, man. I think he's going to be better. Even Baker himself has said, maybe he didn't take things, as seriously as he should last year. You're right. The team was last year, people thought they were going to be great. And I think both you and I sat back and said, anytime you ever see the Lions, the Browns are going to be great. They're probably not going to be great because they've never been great. So, but no, listen, the team's done all the right things. They tried to shore up the offensive line. You go out, you get Jack Conklin, you draft a tackle in the first round. You love what they have offensively. You know they're going to run a different kind of offense. I think you have a different kind of head coach. But again, I think the challenge with Cleveland is a new coach, new GM. Of course, Cleveland turns over their roster like any team that you've ever seen because that's, they calls for it. But at the same time, you don't have training. You don't have the ability to be together and necessarily practice in preseason and things like this that you normally would to really get the young guys in there, the free agents in there, the new acquisitions in there. And I think that that's important. But I think that as far as offensively goes, you still, if you're Baker Mayfield, you really got only one new weapon in Austin Hooper. there should be some chemistry there with OBJ and Jarvis and Higgins and Kareem Hunt and things like that. That should be there already. You add Austin Hooper. That's pretty much the only main difference you're going to see in the starting lineup potentially. But again, you worry about throwing in a new scheme, throwing in a new playbook and what they're trying to do. And yes, guys are watching film and doing things, but it's different to be hands-on. And I think it's tough for young coaches and rookie coaches and really even rookies in general. I think it's going to be difficult for because, these guys aren't getting the reps with coaching and with, in doing, drills and things like that they normally would. So to me, it'll be very interesting to see how long of a curve it is for the rookies. But that's what, for me, concerns me with the Browns. I expect Baker to be better, in my opinion. I'm going to let you give your record and everything first because I look forward to it. I think everybody does. I mean, you can rant about him some more if you want.
Baker has to be the key. When you look at what the Browns have, if you look at the top five, if you're going basketball with the starting five, when you can go out there with your skill position players being Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Austin Hooper, Baker Mayfield has no reason not to be better this year.
David
Njoku, who should be on the roster, who you're going to play 2 tight end sets. When you're going out there with 2 tight end sets and you've got Landry and Beckham and Njoku and Hooper, Chubb or Hunt, I mean, your ability to do whatever you want on offense, it's amazing what they can do. And they finally did things the right way. And what I said with the Bengals is you have to shore up the offensive line. The Browns last year, they lost Joe Thomas and they tried to keep Greg Robinson there for a second year. And Greg Robinson had more important things to take care of, like running drugs for a cartel, apparently. You had Chris Hubbard playing right tackle, who was basically a turnstile. Nice guy, great dude, great human being, average tackle. But what it's going to allow him to do this year is be a swing guy, which is what he's best at, because now you have Jack Conklin at right tackle. You're going to hope Jedrick Wills can step in at left tackle as a rookie, and I talked about it with the Bengals. You don't know what you're going to get necessarily. But then you have Joel Bitonio at left guard, who is a perennial all-pro, J.C. Tretter, one of the better centers in the league, and now where you're really worried is your right guard spot. But at right guard, you have a shot. You can play Chris Hubbard there if you want. You can play Wyatt Teller, who the Browns got from the Bills for a 6th-round pick in training camp last year. Drew Forbes, who was a 6th-round pick and showed promise at guard. Or you drafted Nick Harris, a center out of Washington in the 5th round, who can also play guard. Your right guard spot should be shored up by the time this season starts. And where you said they're not going to get the reps on the field a lot, that's going to struggle with the right guard spot. It may take 2 or 3 games before you really figure out what you got there. But needless to say, this offensive line is 100% improved. So as far as the offense, there is no reason why this team shouldn't put up points. You have an offensive-minded head coach who has built offenses and made Kirk Cousins look really, really good and almost worth the money he got the past few seasons. On defense, you've got Myles Garrett coming back, who is possibly the best defensive end in football. Olivier Vernon, when healthy, is really good. Your linebackers play is the weakest part of the squad, but it's dependent on how good.
Young, though.
It is. It's young. But if Mac Wilson takes a step forward and Sione Takitaki, which is just fun to say, if he steps up, you're not worried there. You got Greedy Williams, who needs to get better. You've got Denzel Ward, who needs to prove his rookie season was as good as we thought he's going to be, because he was kind of off at times last year. And then in your secondary, you've got Grant Delpit, who a lot of people thought was a top 20 pick. A lot of young guys in that defense, but a lot of ability there. So this team has all the chances to be really good. And it's going to come down to what you get out of Baker Mayfield and how much a rookie head coach can teach in a weird, thrown off, not normal offseason. And the Browns over-under is 8. And it just means Vegas knows exactly where to go, because this team, they should be 10-6. Should be. That's how good they are. They should be 10-6, 11-5. But because it's the Browns, and because you never know what you're going to get, because they are the life is a life or a box of chocolates thing, you never know what you're going to get from this team. I don't know if I can go over. I can't go under at 7-9. I want to push, but I'm not going to be a pussy about it. So I'm going to say the Browns will get over, and they will be a 9-7 team. and that was really hard to do. Give me your prediction.
Well, I think Jack Conklin is a plug-and-play fantastic right tackle, by the way.
Yes. And before you go any further on that, I want to say something to Cleveland fans. Conklin, really good run blocker, not great pass blocker. He's going to give up sacks. Don't start hating on the guy because he's not Mitchell Schwartz, who you guys let walk out the door. But go ahead.
I think at times that secondary, well, those corners can be soft. I think they can be soft. I do like Grant Delpit. It's funny, it is funny. 8-8. I will take the over as well. I honestly have 9-7 written down for the Browns. It's my prediction. I wanted to go 10-6. I did. I just
you can't because it's the damn Browns.
Well, and the division's just difficult. I mean, it is to play to play. Ben Roethlisberger back. Although they played Baltimore well last year, I'm gonna go with 9-7 as well. The fact that we both went 5 and we didn't talk about this before the show at all. It was 5-11, 9-7. So yeah, I got the Browns going from 6-10 to 9-7. And listen, if they go 9-7 and Baker Mayfield plays better, then I think that's somewhat promising. If they don't, then we're back to the lab. They're back to the lab. Because if Baker Mayfield plays like he did last year, they're going to be looking to find somebody to at least come into. Or the shit Case Keenum can come in. Who knows?
Listen, if Baker is interception prone and turnover prone and staring down receivers or trying to force it to OBJ, which was a big thing he tried to do last year, if that's the way he plays, Case Keenum will be starting by week 8. Because you can't win football games when your quarterback is giving the ball to the other team. You don't win it playing that way. That's why Jeff George failed out of the league. That's why Jay Cutler struggled. I mean, Jameis Winston signed a $5 million deal to be a backup.
Hey, bro, he got LASIK, though, bro. Come on, man.
I mean, he can see better now, and he can tell where he's thrown. So when he does get a chance, he's going to be really good. But it's just the Browns, man. It's hard. The fan in me says this is a 14-2 team because that's what I want to see. But the realist in me, the guy who's covered the team since 2010, I have had hope every year. And they just haven't done it. But 9-7 is feasible. Yes, you hit it. It's a tough division, and it's really weird off season. You got to stick with Stefanski going into hopefully next season too. But
I'll get fired. New
GM. Enough. We've learned from this. But just stick with it. Baker is the key to this team this year. That's all it is. You're only going to be as good as Baker Mayfield lets you be because you've got all the options around him, unbelievable weapons. And now we'll move on to the division rival. The last matchup between these two teams was an absolute shit show. The 8-8 Pittsburgh Steelers. And as their biggest addition this year, I wrote Ben Roethlisberger because without Ben, they were terrible last year, led by Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. They also added Eric Ebron, your favorite tight end. Alex Highsmith in the draft.
It's not a key addition. I'm falling a key addition. What are you talking about?
They need tight end help. Vance McDonald was a one-year wonder, but they lost Javen Hargrave on the defense, and that's a big loss in the center of their defense. What do you expect from the Steelers this year?
Better. They're going to be a playoff team. You said it. Without Ben Roethlisberger, with all respected Duck Hodges, it was just the offense was terrible. They were one dimensional when James Conner was even nicked up. When James Conner was nicked up, they were no dimensional. Juju Smith struggled to be the guy on the outside, and because really the inability to give him the football. I think once they traded for Minka Fitzpatrick, the defense flipped, and the defense was good. And I liked that. Look, that Minka Fitzpatrick trade looks good now, and everybody thought it was dumb. For me personally, I like Pittsburgh this year. I don't love them, but I like them. To give my prediction for Pittsburgh would be to finish second in the division at 10-6.
Their over-under is 9.5. So you're right over there. Give you the over on that. I mean, you look at Pittsburgh last year. That team had no business being 8-8 after Ben Roethlisberger went down. I mean, Mason Rudolph is not good, and that's putting it nicely.
Make a trade.
Duck Hodges, you won games with Duck Hodges.
I know.
And he couldn't throw the ball. Like, he was Tim Tebow, 47% completion percentage bad at times. Like, he was bad, but he did things they needed to win. Like, he got the job done.
That man is a family.
And this is just to prove that Mike Tomlin is one hell of a football coach.
I agree with that.
And
he'll trip a person if he has to.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, 100% he will. He does whatever it is to win the game. You play to win the game. But you look at this team, like the running back, James Conner, was he a one-year wonder, or is he going to be a good running back? Like, is he a top 10 running back in the AFC? Because after him, you've got Jalen Samuels, who was solid in spurts, but then you got Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland, who's a rookie this year. You look at tight end, Vance McDonald was really good for a stretch in 2018, absolutely disappeared in 2019, and now you bring in Eric Ebron, who had one good season with Andrew Luck and has been absolutely brick hand trash for most of his career otherwise. And you know that as a Lions fan.
I do.
So
and Colts fan knows.
Yeah.
Colts fans knows.
He actually put
on the team last year. Remember?
Absolutely did.
So to hell with that guy.
So what are you getting from that guy? And I mean, you look at their offense, the weapons really aren't there, but this team does something better than any other team in the NFL, and that's develop wide receivers. And at wide receiver, Deontay Johnson started to come on at the end of last year, the speedster out of Toledo. Juju, maybe with the help of Deontay Johnson, can start to really put it together and be the number one. James Washington came on. And then you added Chase Claypool, who 6'5", 240-pound, 4'2", 4'3" speed freak. If any team's going to get the most out of this guy who can probably be a receiving tight end at some point in his career if he puts on some pounds, it's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they don't have great weapons, but they manage to do pretty well with the weapons they have. And as far as defense, you've got Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt. You're set up there. You've also got other great players on the team. I mean, they always seem to put out corners who can just get the job done. And I'm going to go with you. I'm going on the over with this. They're going to be a 10-6 football team.
And we're just picking the same thing. Both of us have the same thing.
I mean, Baltimore may be the difference for us here. We'll see. But, I mean, you look at this roster, I can't go against – it's like where I want to say the Browns are going to be better. If the Browns were coached by Mike Tomlin, I think they're a 13-win team. But they're not. Mike Tomlin, regardless of what's on this roster and regardless of what weapons they really have, Mike Tomlin gets the most out of every single football player, 1-53, better than almost any coach in the NFL.
And for the record, I think that Ebron will have a decent year, just because I think that Roethlisberger can find his tight ends. I think that Roethlisberger is certainly a quarterback that will be able to. All right.
I mean, there's a joke in there. For
no. Finding tight ends. I was glossing over it. Anyway, I think Ebron will have a decent year. I don't think he'll be terrible, but yeah, I think 10-6. I don't consider them a threat to win a Super Bowl, but I think they're a fringe playoff team.
Yeah, and it's going to go back to what do you get out of Ben Roethlisberger and the fact that you have Mike Tomlin. So now I said Mike Tomlin can get almost everything out of a 1-53 roster, better than almost any head coach in the league. And I think the guy who gets more out of those players is the guy who coaches the number one team in this division. The 14-2 last year Baltimore Ravens, led by the MVP Lamar Jackson, 3,127 yards passing, 36 touchdowns, 6 picks, and 1,206 rush yards. Guy's a freak. What do you expect out of the Baltimore Ravens this year?
A lot of the same, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just go ahead and plug in J.K. Dobbins. Okay, thank you very much. The defense is elite. We know it's elite. They are not going to miss a beat. I honestly don't believe it. I don't think they're going to go 14-2 again. I really don't, because going to 14-2 in the NFL is really hard to do, especially when one of your losses is the Browns.
Blew them out.
But I just think that the ability for them to run the football, and people can say that they're going to figure out Lamar Jackson. You know me, I'm still somewhat of a Lamar Jackson critic, but their ability to run the ball, if you can't stop their run, you're not going to be able to stop Lamar Jackson. I don't care what you're going to say. Yeah, if you can't stop them running the ball, Lamar Jackson will throw it on you, and he will be successful doing it.
Yep,
that's simple, because you can only stack the box and blitz so many. Lamar Jackson, he's not like handicapped; he can throw the ball. Like I mean, I expect him to do a lot of the same. And again, adding J.K. Dobbins, the ability for for Hollywood to progress another year at the wide receiver position. They have fantastic tight ends. That offense is going to be humming. That defense is always going to be good, because they always are good.
That defense, it's amazing how they just plug and play constantly. Correct. They always replenish it.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't miss. They don't swing and miss when they're taking a legit defensive player in the draft. It's just the way they are. Or when they grab a free agent, he plugs right into the system and has a specific role. That's fantastic. So for me to get my record for the Ravens, and what's the over under for the Ravens?
11.5.
I want to go over. I'm going to go 12-4.
All right. You look at this team, and we talked about the defense here. You lost Michael Pierce, but then you add Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe to a defensive line that already has Brandon Williams. That is a stout defensive line.
Calais Campbell, for those who don't know, is a $5 million or 5 million pound statue that can rush the passer. What's he weigh? 370, and Calais Campbell's fantastic.
He's like 6'8", 330, and moves like a cat, and he's up there. He's 35 years old, I believe, now at this point, but he's still just gets it done. And now when you're putting him on that defensive line with that talent, it's unbelievable what he can do. So they franchised Matthew Judon, and then you look at what they did. They're like, oh, your linebackers, you lost Patrick O'Musar. You need to get better at linebackers. So they're like, okay, we'll draft Patrick Queen, who was possibly the number one pure linebacker in the draft. Then you're like, oh, we'll get Malik Harrison, who was probably a top 75 pick at 93. You get two linebackers who can plug and play immediately. And you're like, oh, we're pretty good at running the football. We're going to add J.K. Dobbins, who's going to be an absolute star in that offense. Maybe not weeks 1 through 6, but down the stretch, that kid is going to take over. And you can mix him with Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram and Justice Hill, and it is unbelievable, the talent there in the backfield. They're going to run the football down your throat. And the second you come up on them, Hollywood Brown's going to run right past you. And
Mark Andrews team, yeah, they have so many weapons. They do.
And then you had Devin DuVernay, who is going to be excellent as a slot guy, who if Lamar gets really better in the pocket as far as a thrower, Devin DuVernay is going to tear it up. This is a team that has a chance to win a Super Bowl this year. And it's all on the shoulders of one Lamar Jackson and how much he improves as a pure thrower, because I think eventually they will catch on to see how to stop him. And you see that in the playoffs the past 2 years, where he's gotten shut down, where they just, if they don't let them get the football, if you run the football down this team's throat, or if you just stuff him repeatedly, get a lead, you can get ahead of this team and you can do it. So their over-under is 11 and 11.5, and I'm going to take the under. I think they're an 11-5 football team. I still have them winning this division, mainly because their head coach. Like this division, you look at it, it's stacked. The head coaches in this division at the top in Tomlin and Harbaugh, possibly one of the best coach divisions in the league. But we said that last year about the AFC.
I'm going to say something right now. Hot take on whatever July 9th, Thursday, 0% chance the Baltimore Ravens are winning the Super Bowl. I'll shave my damn head. If they win.
All right, we're going to mark that down. An hour and 3 minutes and 30 seconds into our July 9th show. Drew says, if the Baltimore Ravens win the Super Bowl, he will shave his head.
Sure.
I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they have the talent to do so.
No, I don't.
when they get to the playoffs, they just completely get shut down. So to recap, both of us took the under of 5.5 on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns over-under was 8. Both of us took the over on the Cleveland Browns, and that's a prediction surely to be wrong, but hopefully not. Pittsburgh, the over-under 9.5. Both of us took the over, looking at 10-6. And on Baltimore, 11.5 was the over-under. I took the under, he took the over. And that, my friends, is our AFC North 2020 preview.
11.5 is a juicy number, man.
It is.
Boy, Vegas knows what they're doing out there. I swear to you.
That is a good football team with a very good football coach. And if you continue to grow as Lamar Jackson, that's going to be a scary team. Now, before we get out of here, I want to say I saw something. I want to say it was someone from Fox Sports that said 10 years from now, the way we have the LeBron, MJ, who's better debate, we will have the Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes debate. Do you think that will be the fact in 10 years?
No.
I'm with you on that.
No.
I don't think he wins nearly as many Super Bowls as Tom Brady did.
The fact that Tom Brady has what, 6?
And he's been 9. Correct? Yep.
And he's lost 3 Super Bowls and has 6 of them. Like, all the dude does is play in the Super Bowl. Like, that may never happen again. Like, it may not. I mean, for somebody to play in the Super Bowl 9 times, I don't know if you'll ever see a quarterback play in the Super Bowl 9 times.
How many Super Bowls does Patrick Mahomes win by the end of this contract?
3. Well, including the one. So 2. So am I allowed to include the one from last year? If not, I say 2.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll say career. So yeah, we'll say career. So 3.
3.
That's where I'm at as well. I think they have a chance to win this year, next year, and then I think eventually down the road they win another one. I think that's how it's going to work. Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here tonight?
Tigers playing next week, boys and girls.
El Tigre.
Yeah, he's back. First time he's played since February 16th on tour. So we're happy to have him back.
And where is the tour this year or this week?
Well, it's actually the same place this weekend. Next week, it's the Muirfield Village Jack's Course in Columbus, Ohio, 2 weeks in a row. So right down the road from us.
And who's going to win this week?
This week, I will take Colin Morikawa.
All right. So write it down.
And that's close as you're going to get to Cat. I'll take the Cat.
All right. So that's close you're going to get towards wagers until we get some real sports here, which hopefully we will have coming up. Kids, wear your masks, please. Do whatever you can to help eradicate this damn COVID-19 that's killing us in 2020. Because, yeah, it's killing a lot of people, but we also want sports.
It's ruining everything.
Everything.
Tired of it.
And with that being said, I think we're done for the night. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Those of you listening on Spotify, Apple Pods, Google Pods, iHeartRadio, and Anchor.fm. If you want to watch next week, we will be back live from 9 to about 10 p.m. We've gone over once again on our Facebook page, fb.me/FCFSpod. And remember, as always, if you live the life you love, you'll love the life you live. Good night, kids.